Hey everybody, welcome to Weight Loss for Women Over 40. I am your host, Nikki T, and I am so excited today to have you joining me in this episode because we're going to be talking about back pain and how to kind of eliminate it. And I do have a special guest on today. Um, if you are new to this channel, I want to welcome you into my world. We're really talking about mindset and how to shift that so you can get the body that you want. And with all that, we're all over 40 and we have aches and pains. We wake up in the morning and things are like, oh, where did that come from? And sometimes we think we're like, going down the rabbit hole of, oh my gosh, if I don't fix this, something horrible is going to happen to me. But I want you to be rest assured that a lot of times you can fix things that are not an emergency, not a 911. So if you're having back pain, I definitely want you to listen to this whole podcast today. And again, we have a special guest today, and his name is Mark Thiesmeyer Hook. And Mark is an exercise psychologist, a registered dietitian, and founder of Align Athlete and Better Living Fitness. Mark's specialty is helping people with low back pain as part of why he created the Glute Activator tool. So, Mark, welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you for having me on, Nick. Yeah, I love your podcast. I used to work in the weight loss space, and it's just so valuable to have something that's talking about mindset, moving people away from the diet paradigm, and recognizing that weight loss is more than just calories in and calories out, but there's a lot of psychology and complexity to every human being who's going through that journey.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like, everything starts with your mindset. Like if your mindset's set up, it's awesome. If it's not, pardon my French, but you're screwed, like essentially down the line.
Yeah.
So,
Totally. And so few weight loss programs actually address that really well. So I commend you on the work you're doing. And yeah, we need more of it.
thank you so much. Yeah. So I have to say, you are like, what is the word? You're like breaking the rules on my podcast here because I'm bringing you on. Generally speaking, I've always had women guests on. So first of all, you're a guy coming on. But you're also going to be talking a lot about back pain and giving us an alternative for how to work on that and get a solution. So I'm really excited. This is like a new thing. I've been doing this podcast for over 5 years, and I haven't really been bringing people on. So, but I'm so glad you reached out to me with this product that you're going to talk about. And I know I used it, and I'm going to fill you all in on my experience with it. But Mark, tell everyone kind of your background and like what you've been up to up until this point of discovering the glute activator.
Yeah, my journey started back in college. I was running an exterior painting company to put myself through college. And one day, in my carelessness, I walked backwards off a roof, landed on my back, couldn't breathe, thought I might die on this client's lawn. But I managed to get up, and that began. Well, I went to the hospital. They told me I was fine and sent me home with muscle relaxants, and that really began 8 years of chronic back pain.
Wow.
And I can. It was a blessing that it happened so early in my life when I had a lot of time to research and learn more. And it led me down the path of becoming an exercise trainer and a dietitian and starting a fitness company to work on strength and flexibility work. I learned from becoming an exercise trainer that I could correct a lot of my back pain, my daily day in and out back pain, by strengthening the core and getting stronger and more flexible through the spine. But for many years, I've been around a while. I've been on the earth for a long time, so I've decades of experience now. I would throw my back out doing the most random thing, like putting my shoes on or putting my pants on or sneezing without something to hold on to. Allergy season is brutal. So then I realized that there's something beyond just strength and flexibility in terms of fixing my own back pain. And I was fortunate enough one day, I was in and out of physical therapy for years, and I became friends with my PTs. And one of them invited me to come to a study group that she was part of. PTs in Michigan actually don't have to do continuing education, and
Oh,
these PTs realized that the field's evolving, so of
yeah.
course they should be getting together and studying. And it was this marvelous space of people coming and collaborating with each other. And they didn't, I felt completely out of my depths because, first of all, they're all lab coats sitting around in a room talking about a language that I didn't even understand, like innominate rotation and left on right torsion and, all these things that made no sense to me. But they didn't seem to mind my being there. And I stuck around for a decade and went, every month to this study group, and I learned their language. And I learned that they were working on pelvic alignment and sacral alignment and lower back rotations that were driving some of this back pain in people who were weak, that hadn't, weren't working with exercise yet, and people who were strong. Invariably, if there's this whole layer of pelvic sacral alignment, that SI joint and the lumbar spine, that if you get into good alignment, you invariably seem to have less pain, less problems, more fluidity in the body. So I dove in and studied that, and I worked with those PTs, and they did the techniques on me, and I learned how to do the techniques on our customers at Better Living. But I never had those PTs with me before I was ready to go out for a jog. Got up in the morning, my back felt twingy. And so I started playing around with, can we do these techniques, these things that have been used for decades in PT and in doctors' offices? Could we do something that was similar on our own bodies? And that's what led me to start Align Athlete, where we're creating the tools that help people with their own physical misalignments to take some ownership over their bodies and help themselves feel better.
Mm.
And since I started working on these products, I haven't had a significant incident where, I sneezed and, something dire happened where I couldn't, walk for 2 days. I'm chalking that up as a win. I don't know if I'm really
That's
over
a
back
big win.
injuries.
Yeah, because if you think about it, so for those of you who are new to me, I have a background in physical therapy. I worked as a physical therapist assistant for a number of years. But I was also a professional ballet dancer before that, and I was very much the technician, meaning I, without knowing it, I understood alignment and I understood how the body needed to at least be. I didn't know the technical terms, but I at least understood, how to stand, how to rotate, how to do the things that you needed to do for ballet, on a like weird physical level. Like I could feel it in my body and I knew when something was out of alignment or something wasn't quite right. But then when I, started working as a physical therapist assistant, it made a lot more sense. And I do think, and we were talking about this before we pushed record, of like a lot of people's posture is horrible. Sorry for those of you with horrible posture, but we live in a society where we're constantly hunkered over on a computer, looking at our phone, sitting all the time, like whether you're driving to work and then you're sitting in front of a computer and then you come home and then you sit on the couch. Like there's a lot of things that our body is adapting to due to technology, due to our everyday living, but it's not serving our body when we need to do normal things, right? So if you're always in this hunched position, or even like if you have that what's called a swayed back where your butt is sticking out in the back, you're causing misalignments. So, and I know for me working in PT, a lot of the alignment issues that say were in your knee were actually coming from your back or coming from your feet. So there's a lot of places that can be misaligned and you're getting referred pain to some other place. But I think too, the amount of sitting that we do, and I've talked about this on both my two TEDx talks about sitting too much, and I did it on dead butt syndrome too, if you want to go check those out. But the sacrum, like, because I know Mark's, if you're not familiar of the medical world, like sacrum and all these big words, you may not quite understand. But basically, if you put your hands on your hips and you go in towards your tush, like that spinal alignment, the lumbar spine, that lower part, a lot of people have herniated discs there. You'll hear it L1, L2, like those things, they might sound familiar to you. These are what we're talking about in the sense of like when you're in better alignment, you're going to be able to move, you're going to be able to function better. And I love, Mark, that you talked about sneezing because that is something that most people deal with, right? And I know from my experience, people with back problems, they would sneeze and, or cough, and something would feel like they were like laying on the floor for days because their back hurts, their back's out of alignment. So I love that you created this, and I love the experience that you had throughout the years because I truly believe that, unfortunately, falling off that ladder, but it gave you like the things that happen in our life, I feel like build our purpose, right?
It's a
So
blessing. When you
it,
look back, it's like that was one of the best things that happened to me. It shaped a whole career path
yeah,
that has allowed me to help myself and help other people who maybe like, didn't fall off a roof, but they were in a car accident or they just slept on a bad mattress for 10 years. And it's like, they ended up in the same place, just slower.
right,
Um,
right.
you made that point about sitting. Americans sit for 6.5 to 8 hours every day, and that has an impact. I have a pelvis here. I
Oh,
have
there you go.
the
So for those
sacrum.
of you
The
watching on
sacrum
YouTube, you can see this.
the sacrum's at the bottom of the pelvis. The lumbar spine is right above this, and the thoracic spine's above that. So the sacrum is five fused vertebrae that connect to the coccyx, which is below it, our tailbone, and form the upper part of our butt. And the effect of sitting is that it can nutate the sacrum, as in it tips out a little bit at the bottom, kind of like a Donald Duck butt.
Mm.
Or it can counter nutate it, where it's almost like a scared dog, where you're tucking the tail between your legs. And both of those things will weaken different glute muscles. So we created this tool called the Glute Activator to essentially grip to and conform to that sacrum bone and mobilize it so that you have the ability to traction it yourself and do small distraction or manipulation, tractioning at that bone to open up the nerve channels that fire those muscles of the glutes and the hips and the rotators of the hips. You talked about the knee problem. I just did a social media message on a knee problem is often a hip problem or a glute problem
Hmm.
because with that counter nutation, um, where your top is sticking out of the sacrum and the bottom is sticking in, it weakens both of your internal hip rotators. And you'll see people walking around with their toes turned outward or their feet turned outward
That was
because,
me when I was ballet dancer. Yeah,
well, that's
duck
a
walk.
little conditioning. They're getting you into that plie, but
Yeah.
uh, that actually causes some stress at that knee joint, which is a hinge. And
Mhm.
now that hinge is turning out sideways, but our body is moving forward and backwards. And so, yeah, we wanted to give people the ability in a minute or two, in say in the morning when they wake up, to activate things and get their glutes and hip muscles firing better so that exercise isn't as hard. I don't know, a number of days before I came up with this concept that I'd go out for a run because it's like, oh, I enjoy running.
Mhm.
It's therapeutic, it's good for my heart, and it's just something I've always done. But I'd get a half a mile away from the house and be like, the back pain is just too bad. Like
Yeah.
sometimes it works itself out and sometimes it doesn't, and I have to kind of limp home.
Mhm.
So, and talking about weight loss, we all know we should exercise or exercise might be good for us, but sometimes things are just a little too out of whack with our sacrum and pelvis that it's going to be hard to push through that misalignment or warm up out of it. The tool helps.
Yeah.
hopefully creating more good days for people to move fluidly and with less effort
Yeah.
than it would be if they were just approaching exercise cold without doing some little alignment techniques on themselves.
Yeah. And I think this is useful. And I actually want to get into, so I have mine that Mark sent me, which is super nice. And for those of you that are listening on the podcast, I want to encourage you to go to the YouTube channel and watch what Mark just was talking about with the pelvis, because I love that you brought that pelvis and where the glute activator goes, because it's such a visual for you guys to see rather than listening and trying to understand and picture, especially if you're not in the medical field. Um, so definitely go check out the YouTube video version of this so you can see it. But so tell everybody, and I'm showing my glute activator right now, but tell everyone why, like, did you have a dream one night and you're like, yes, this is the concept. This is what I want to do.
Well, I had a lot of SI joint problems, some tenderness in that right SI joint. A lot of times people have it in the left SI. That's the area along the bottom side of the lower back. And for a lot of people, so we take advantage that we are on YouTube. It's point pain like right here, but people can feel SI pain even in their groin or into their butt cheek. So it's not the same for everybody. And the S of the SI joint is the sacrum. The I is the ilium or the pelvis. And what I learned from that study group is there's actually four things that can go wrong at the sacrum or dysfunctions that people can have that a lot of times they don't even notice until they injure their knee or
Mm.
the back pain gets bad and they're like, gosh, I should do something about that. So knowing that there were four things that went wrong, I wanted to create a tool that conformed to the sacrum bone and allowed people to do manipulation on it. So sometimes the sacrum will tilt a little sideways, left or to the right, pops out of the body, and that edge there will catch it and help it to coax it back into the right place. Sometimes the sacrum goes like an escalator where it's a little high on one side and low
Mm.
on the other. And this with the handlebars allows people to unrotate it. If one of the external rotators of the hip is weak, that's a sign that a lot of times that's the side that the sacrum's a little high on. And if you have a collapsing arch on your foot, that can be a sign that your sacrum's a little high on that side.
Mm. That
If
makes
you
sense.
lie on your stomach and you bend your knee and you can't lift either leg to the ceiling, that's a sign that your sacrum is tilting out a little bit at the bottom. And just placing this flat on the sacrum, it's going to catch the side that's poking out and coax it back in. The thing I like, and the feedback I've gotten from customers on this is they like that it's so gentle. Like it's a 1 or 2 pound of pressure where you breathe into it and it just does the trick of putting things back into place. A lot of times people don't even feel anything happening, but we do muscle testing with a device called a dynamometer. Dynamometer. I always say it a little bit wrong. There's a syllable in the middle there that I think my dyslexia is not allowing me to see. But it will measure the force of a muscle, kind of like just having that muscle stand on a scale. And I can test that people, after a minute of using this, will be stronger in the glute max or those internal or external rotators of the hip just by placing this on the sacrum and using their arms to manipulate the sacrum a little bit away from the spine. And our theory on that is it's the 6.5 to 8 hours of sitting. The
Mm.
sacrum's getting jammed up into the spine, kind of like anytime I played piano, my shoulders were at my ears because I was so tense.
Yeah.
Well, gravity is pushing that sacrum up as we sit on it, and just a little bit of pulling it away from the spine just helps those nerves to fire better and take away some of that stiffness that we all walk around with, even if we're not noticing it.
Yeah, I agree. I was actually very excited when you reached out to me because I have been struggling with SI joint pain, and mine's on my right side. I don't have any collapsed arches or anything like that, but um, because it was kind of like divine intervention when you reached out to me, Mark, because I was really struggling. Like I had figured out kind of what it was and what was going on. But I mean, there were times when I was having a lot of nerve pain down the leg, and trying to figure out if it was the piriformis was too tight or if it was coming from the SI joint or what was going on. And so when you came to me and, told me about this, I was like, yes, I would love to try this. For those of you, again, who don't know me, I don't promote products unless I agree with them. I just feel it's very incongruent with my moral standing. So I told Mark, I said, I would like to try this before I bring you on the podcast. And he was nice enough to send me one of these. And so I did use it. And what I found with it was my SI joint does feel better. Um, I think because I used it. So again, for those of you who are kind of not watching and listening, and I know, Mark, you have videos on how to actually use this, but just for a visual for you guys that are listening, you lay down on your belly and then you put this handlebar on your sacrum area, and then you push down and then push down towards your feet for one of the versions. Is that correct, Mark? That's the one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
our main technique, you place it on the sacrum, which we keep using that anatomical term. The sacrum for people who are wearing normal waisted pants or shorts, not a high waisted or the low riding, but sort of right in the middle. It's going to be at the lower third of your waistband. So and that's important. Once people get it into the right place,
Yeah.
you just place it there, the grip of it onto that spot in the middle of your butt, the top of your butt at the waistband, but center of the body, left to right.
Hmm.
And you anchor it with just enough force so that when you try to push down toward your feet, it doesn't slip on your clothing. So
Mm.
it's a very light anchoring. And we made the tool a little bit rough, like sandpaper, so that it would grip clothing and not slide on it.
Yeah.
And then you traction toward your feet. So you're pulling that sacrum that could have gotten jammed up into your spine from that 6.5 to 8 hours of sitting, um, away from the spine, and just hold that constant pressure of 1 to 2 pounds for about 8 to 10 breaths. Resting your face on the floor, so that you're not lifting the head and activating all of the paraspinal muscles, those muscles
The
that go
back.
down the
Yeah.
spine,
Yeah.
allows everything to relax in it to just do its trick.
Yeah. And
And as you said, we have YouTube videos at alignathlete.com or Align Athlete's YouTube channel that show more advanced techniques for if one foot's turned out or 2 feet are turned out, or if you do have that collapsing arch on one side. But
yeah.
that general technique it handles 80% of the problems. So it's nice. We wanted something that was simple for people who didn't have a background in physical therapy to know how to use.
Yeah. And that was one of the things I did like about this and using it is that, I mean, it was 10 seconds to lay on the ground, 5 seconds to put it on my back, and then a minute maybe for holding. And I personally could feel like I am very much like I probably distracted a little bit more, but I know what I'm doing in the sense of like separating that. And it just like I felt like I could get up a little bit easier. I could go through my workout. Actually, I just did it right before this interview because I was like,
Awesome.
I'm going to be sitting for a little bit. Um, but I do like it's simple. It's very simple. And I know that like this is not going to like a disclaimer, like it's not going to fix if you have a herniated disc. It may help, but I know Mark and I were talking before, like go to your doctor, go to your PT, show
Physical
them
therapist.
this. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, PT. Sorry, I sometimes say PT, and people think personal trainer, which you can, but I would recommend going
Yeah.
to a physical therapist. Um, or your doctor and show them this and say, can this help me? They may be like, yes, bring it in. Let's give it a whirl. Let's try it
Hmm.
under supervision, especially depending on if you've got severe herniated discs, you want to make sure that you're careful because you don't want that to bulge out any more than it already is. So, do your due diligence. But I agree with Mark in the sense of like, there's a lot of people that just have regular back pain that and it's coming from sitting that you can use this and it just gives you some relief to so you can get through the day instead of taking Advil, instead of trying to get shots and things like that. Like there's so I won't go down the rabbit hole of medicine, but like there's so many side effects from, taking those pain reliefs and it's also masking your pain. And if you can do something that is natural and helpful, I say go for it.
Right, a little bit of maintenance on the body. And we never intended our tools to replace a chiropractor, doctor, physical therapist, but more to empower you to be able to do something for your body when you can't necessarily get in. And I never had that person with me exactly when I needed the relief. Usually, before you want to, go for a run, or you get up out of bed and it's like, I slept in a hotel room and
Mm,
the mattress did not agree with my spine. They're meant to be self-care tools. And our second product in our line is going to work on some of those lumbar spine rotations. And we also have a tool that's in the progress for helping people to realign their pelvis. So with those three tools in place, we've covered a lot of the things that irritate most people's back chronically. So like me, when I was having pain for 8 years, it was something that was chronically misaligned that wasn't going to be fixed overnight. It needed some self-care.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I know I've run into hundreds of people who say the same thing, that they're living with pain that may not be taking them out of the game or taking them out of their life, but it's just one more thing to deal with. And in one of our previous conversations, Nikki, we talked about willpower and like, how in a weight loss mindset, you don't want to be tapping into your willpower to make good choices. If you can take away some of the stresses on your body that might be already weighing you down, it's a lot easier to get into a mindset of self-care and taking care of a health journey that will get you to your healthy body weight.
yeah, yeah. And I think it is, especially when you have physical pain, I think that that is something that a lot of people just live with, in the sense, but like you're saying, like it's a burden. It's a not just a physical burden, but it's an emotional, mental burden that you're carrying around because your brain is constantly going, something's wrong, something's wrong. Like, how do I get out of this? And you know, um, I'm sure you either have heard of somebody or know somebody who has had chronic pain and they've either turned to, medication, where they're overusing it, things like that. Depression comes up. Like, there's a lot of things that come with chronic pain, and especially like it's like this background hum, right? So it's not enough that it's like I need to go to the emergency room, but it's like this ongoing background hum that you're always living with. So if you can find something that works for you, go for it.
And
And
women are far more likely than men to have lower back pain due to their structure of their
yeah, Q
bodies, the
angle.
hormonal changes.
Hmm.
Pregnancy will do a number on your joint toxicity. Um,
Yeah.
and age increases the risk of lower back pain. So I'll get a lot of people who are like, well, I'm just getting old. Pain is something that has to happen or happens inevitably when you get old. And that's a mindset that I work
Yes.
on in my practice, where it's like, oh, no, no, no. And if you think 55 is old, I'm going to tell you 75 is not old, 85 is getting there. So we need to get out of that idea that you're going to have pain just because each another year has passed by. No, we need to get smarter about our physical alignment and our self-care.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because yes, that is we are so conditioned to believe certain things in our life, right? So like you were talking about like the women that are watching, when you go through the change, there's supposed to be like this catastrophic things that happen to you. And I mean, I know TMI, I'm going through it and I don't have as many. And I know I've worked with clients who have the same, like they have like one or two symptoms and it's not a big deal. But again, I think mindset always comes first, right? So if you think that old age or aging is something where you're like, oh crap, well, my knees are going to be shot and take a moment and listen to your parents, what they used to say, not blaming them, but like those are the stories, those are the patterns that you're growing up with and that you're holding on to. And it doesn't have to be your story. You know, the person that says, well, my genes are bad, meaning not your Jean, your Gen, my genetics are bad, like that maybe, but it doesn't mean it's always expressed in you. So,
Those
um,
those are perhaps your cards, and how you play them is your decision.
yeah, yeah. Um, I also want to say too, like using this, I also want to say this in conjunction with strengthening your body and stretching
Mhm.
and things like that, and you know, hydrating and all that. They are important too. So it is a, I don't want to say a supplement, but it is
A
a
tool in the toolkit.
complementary tool, yeah, to all those things. And if it can, again, help you in just feeling better for the day, go grab one, right?
Definitely.
Anything else you want to add before
I
we
think
get
we
into?
covered it.
Okay.
I just want to say, I thought lower back pain was a very, very challenging problem to work on. And I will say that because I originally, early on in my career, went to I had a doctor as a client who looked at me when I was in one of those acute episodes where my pelvis was shifted over here and my shoulders were over here, and I was just really feeling very compromised. And he said something that I found profoundly inadequate, which was, you're gonna lower back pain cases like this will self-resolve in a few weeks. It's like, you don't need me. And I
Mm,
realize now how wise he was, because generally people will go and they'll have their spine imaged, which, is what they do, and they'll find a herniated disc or a bulging disc, either right where the pain is or near the pain. And people will invariably assume that that is the reason for their pain. But we've now learned from MRI studies of populations of people who don't have pain that 25% of 20-year-olds have that bulging disc.
mm,
And as we get older, it's like 50% of people over 40 will be imaged and show that they have a bulging or even a herniated disc. And that does not mean that they have to be experiencing pain. I think we're all walking around with chinks in our armor,
mm.
which is why it's usually not a car accident or a fall downstairs that sets off a lower back pain incident, but like more like what we talked about before, where it's like, oh, I sneezed or I twisted a little weird when I was, unloading the dishwasher.
Yeah.
Um, and just because that happened doesn't mean that you won't make any complete recovery. Yes, talk to your medical professionals. I personally think a physical therapist is more able to help people in pain than most doctors who, no fault to them, don't have enough time,
Hmm.
because insurance won't
Sure.
allow them enough
Yep.
time, and they have to know every single medication that's on the market or coming on the market or being advertised to their patients.
Yes.
And there's just not enough mental capacity to also remember every bit of anatomical thing that they learned in med school, and they're not using it on a daily basis like a PT is. So,
Yep.
physical therapy is the way to go, if you want to start working on your back pain. And once you have done that, a tool like this can also be super helpful.
Yeah, I am very biased with physical therapy for sure. Um, as a little side note, I remember it's been years. Someone that I went to high school with reached out to me, or I don't remember exactly how it came about, or I saw their post and they were having a lot of back pain and they were going to surgery. And I told them, I said, go to physical therapy first. And the person messaged me a couple months later and was like, thank you so much because they didn't want to do the surgery and physical therapy helped them and they've been fine as far as I know ever since. And this was quite a few years ago. So, and
You did
physical,
a real service for that person.
yeah, well, and I think too, a lot of people don't know that, again, it's we're in a society that's like, oh, give me the drug, give me the
Hmm.
pain relief immediately, right? The instant gratification thing. And with physical therapy, and make sure you get a good physical therapist because, like any other profession, there's some not so great ones. There's some that, you're like on a mill where it's insurance. You get 10 minutes
Hmm.
with the PT and then you're on your own, essentially. But having the right PT, and they have direct access, so you can go. You don't have to do insurance or anything like that, but they have an understanding of the body, like exhaust all your alternatives before you go the surgery route, before you go to the drug route, because again, drugs are changing your chemical comp compound in your body, right? And can lead to other things, other side effects. Surgery is another thing, going under anesthesia, going and recovery and all that. Like, again, get away from the instant gratification. Sometimes you need to just stair step. I mean, you said it took you how long? 8 years to
Well,
10
eight
years?
years to discover exercise science and get a master's degree and start learning how to strengthen my body. But to your point about surgery, my mom had a fusion in her lumbar spine, and she would say it took her a year to recover from the surgery. So it's definitely not always a quick fix to have
True,
that. And
true.
even now, she will be in pain and say, I can get up from an alignment with you and feel no pain.
Mm,
So
that's good.
alignment is definitely a layer of understanding on your body that will help just everything to be easier with your fitness journey.
Yeah. And just as a side note, for those of you, fusion means cementing those two bones together. So the movement that you used to have is no longer, right? So
Right.
again, if you can avoid that, and I'm not saying there are times when I
It's
think surgery is necessary, so I'm not saying
it's
that, but
last resort.
at last resort, yes, exhaust all the options that you have, and yeah. So that could probably be a whole nother podcast. So we won't go down that road.
We'll talk again
We
on
will.
that issue.
Okay, so one of the things I like to do when I interview people is do a fun little lightning round. It's just a kind of a way to get to
Oh
know
boy.
you. Yeah. Are you ready?
I
And
don't know.
I gotta say, everybody that has listened to my interviewed podcast always loves this part.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so we're gonna start off easy. Which do you prefer, cat or dog?
Dog.
Okay.
We have
So
a dog named Doug.
Doug. Oh, that's so cute.
Doug.
What kind of a dog?
He's a rescue, mostly Australian Shepherd, very sweet, doesn't bark. He hugs you by putting the top of his head on your like neck or
Oh,
your leg to be
oh,
like, I love you.
oh, that's so cute. Oh my gosh, so cute. I'm a dog person too, personally. Okay, so we all have had some weird, unique job in the past that was kind of out there. Do you have one like that?
Yes, I worked for an Italian restaurant as a dishwasher when I was like 14 years old, and the chefs or cooks in that restaurant would throw hot pots across a counter, and it would fly into the sink that your hands were in. So you had to quickly raise your hands before the pot hit you.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
that's my that's my job.
That's your job. Yeah, I waited tables and bartended for a decade, so I'm familiar with what goes on
Restaur
behind
restaurants
in
are
the
tough.
kitchen.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so last question. What movie would you never get tired of watching?
Oh boy. Wow, this may say something about my intellect, but Airplane One. I thought the slapstick in that was just art. And yeah, now nobody's gonna treat me with any respect, but
No, 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 not at all. Like I remember was it 2 years ago? 2 or 3 years ago, I was getting ready to fly, and I live in New Jersey, so I was going to fly out to Texas or somewhere. And I hadn't flown in a while because of COVID and things like that. And guess what the movie was that I watched the night before I was ready to fly out? And I was
I
like, why
hope
am
it
I
was
watching
Airplane.
this? But yeah, Airplane definitely. It's funny when I watched it as an older person,
Hmm.
because I think
Because
that
you were a
movie,
child when you first saw it, right?
yeah, but like I don't know about you, but like I think the rating is PG. And I'm like,
Hmm. Hmm.
back in our day, things definitely like, I mean, there were probably some borderline R stuff going on there.
Yep.
And as a mom, I'm like, wow, I'm definitely selective, was very selective about what my kids watch. But yeah, no, I think that's a funny slapstick movie. And if you're in our age range, I'm sure you watched it and thought it was hysterical. Like, surely you think it's funny.
So funny.
Awesome. Well, Mark, it has been a pleasure talking to you today, and I am so glad that you are on a journey to really help people alleviate back pain. And I hope to see this on Shark Tank or somewhere in the
That
stores.
may happen someday.
That would be
Thanks, Nikki. This
awesome.
this this has been a blast.
Yeah, awesome. So tell everyone where they can find you and how they can
You can
get a
find
hold
us
of you.
at alignathlete.com. That's ALIGN athlete.com. We're offering free shipping domestically on the Glute Activator as of today. We also have a wall poster there that shows all of those different techniques for using the Glute Activator. And coming out soon, we have a lower back reset course that's going to actually talk about fixing the pelvic misalignment and those lumbar rotations because we realize that the glute activator is 1/3 of the equation for helping people with lower back pain. So the story is a little bit more advanced than just what glute activator will do, but it's definitely a good chunk of lower back relief. The lower back reset course will handle the rest of it.
I love that you're doing things that are complementary to this product because I think a lot of times people buy things and they're like, well, it just does this one thing and then they wind up not using it or whatever. And I've watched the videos that you sent me, and I think that it's so helpful to go take your time and watch the videos because this little product can do a lot more than just align, that one spot. So I love that you're going to be bringing out new products and continuing this because, again, I think we need things that don't rely on drugs and surgery, like to start with.
So true.
So, yeah. So it has been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much. Everyone who is listening, I will leave his Align website in the show notes, and you can also find him on Instagram, right? Is that your main platform, Instagram?
Instagram and Facebook, but we're
Okay.
also on YouTube and LinkedIn. So yeah, we're kind of all over the place. Alignathlete.com.
And
Just
it's Align
type that in.
Athlete across the board
It
on
is
each
Align Athlete
platform.
across the board.
Okay,
Hmm.
awesome. So, but I will leave those in the show notes so you can find him a little bit easier. You can just click on them and go over there. And while you're over on Instagram, please come follow me on Weight Loss for Women over 40 at the end. I've got a lot of things that are coming out that are going to help you continue the mindset journey as you get the body that you want. All right. Thank you all for listening. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you on the next podcast.